Welcome to Echoes of Crime. Today we're heading back right to the turn of the millennium. New Year's Eve, 1999. We're in Smyrna, Tennessee, a place that, looked like your typical American suburb, growing fast south of Nashville.
Exactly. You picture it, right? New houses going up, families moving in, and right there you have Mindy and Henry Dodd. On the surface, just a normal, hardworking, blue-collar couple.
Yeah, Mindy worked at Walmart,
Yeah.
customer service, right? And Henry, he had his own painting business, painting a lot of those new houses springing up all over Smyrna.
Mm-hmm.
They seem pretty ordinary.
And that ordinary image is so key here. Smyrna was growing from maybe 10,000 people to closer to 40,000, a working-class town turning into a bigger suburb. Henry Dodd was literally painting that picture of the new suburban dream. Outwardly, they fit right in.
But, and this is where it gets dark, beneath that surface, their marriage was, it was anything but typical. We're talking deeply, deeply intertwined relationships, things like inappropriate sexual conduct.
Yeah.
It's just a level of dysfunction that's hard to comprehend.
It really is, and it just shows how much can be hidden behind closed doors, The normalcy was a total facade, carefully built up over years, hiding something truly disturbing.
And that facade just shattered violently. On December 31st, 1999, New Year's Eve, it started with someone disappearing, then a frantic search, and finally, a brutal murder right there in that quiet suburb.
A day that should have been about celebrating the new millennium became something else entirely.
So today our mission is to really dig into this. We're going to piece together the facts, the timeline, exactly where things happened. We'll look at the people involved, their backgrounds are, they're shocking. The investigation, the evidence, the trial that followed.
Yeah, we need to understand how these lives got so tangled up, how things could spiral into deception, abuse, and ultimately murder. It really makes you question what goes on behind the seemingly normal doors in any community.
Okay, so let's really set the scene. It's December 31st, 1999, mid-afternoon, Smyrna, Tennessee. Like we said, a growing town, working-class vibe, but expanding rapidly. New subdivisions everywhere.
And Henry Dodd's painting those new homes. He's part of that growth story. It's New Year's Eve. People are probably thinking about parties. The year 2000. That kind of anticipation is in the air.
Yeah, a sense of looking forward. But for the Dodds, that feeling was about to just completely break apart.
The timing is just so jarring, isn't it? New Year's Eve, a symbol of new beginnings. And for it to become the setting for this kind of discovery, it really underscores the horror. Smyrna wasn't seen as a place where this stuff happened.
Right. It felt safe, quiet, until just after 3:00 p.m. That's when the first crack appeared. A 911 call. Frantic, distressed. It was Henry's adult son. The dispatcher picks up, trying to stay calm, and the son just blurts out, "My dad's playing in this truck. He's been shot or something."
Playing? That's an odd word choice. Almost like his brain couldn't process what he was seeing.
Yeah, maybe. But then he clarifies, he's been shot or something. No ambiguity there. It's serious.
And the dispatcher, doing their job, asks the immediate, crucial question. Do you see any gun or any kind of weapon in the truck?
The son's answer, no. Just no.
And that single word changes things for investigators instantly. No weapon at the scene. That points away from suicide, maybe towards something else entirely. Foul play.
The location was a shopping center parking lot. Public, but maybe not constantly watched. When the police got there, it was Henry, 47 years old, slumped in his pickup.
Just lifeless.
The son told the dispatcher more, too. Said his dad had been missing since the night before. He left last night to go pick up my cousin at Hardee's and never came back.
Hardee's, the restaurant, okay.
And then, just heartbreakingly, he adds that he found his dad far too late to help him. You could just feel the weight of that.
Absolutely devastating. And then comes another critical piece right there in that first call. The dispatcher asks, standard procedure, do you see if Henry had been depressed or anything? Trying to get contact.
And the son doesn't hesitate. He says, him and his wife having problems. And then confirms her name. Mindy Dodd.
Boom. Right there. The first official mention of trouble in the marriage. That immediately flags Mindy for the investigators. This might not be random.
And it gets even more complicated because, as investigators soon found out, Mindy Dodd had already called 911.
Earlier that day.
Yeah, a little after 3:00 p.m., reporting Henry missing. Actually, it sounds like her daughter got a call from Mindy around 1 p.m., crying, saying, "Daddy never came home." Then Mindy called the police.
Okay, so the sequence is Mindy calls her daughter upset, then calls 911 about him being missing, and then the son calls 911 having found the body.
Exactly. Those calls, so close together. It just raises immediate questions.
What did Mindy say in her call?
She told the dispatcher she last saw Henry the night before when she left for her overnight shift at Walmart. She said, "Henry left to go pick my nephew up at work." That nephew being James Smallwood, the cousin the son mentioned, and never showed up there.
And her demeanor.
Described as worried. She apparently said, "I'm just kind of worried it's not like him to do that." Kind of. Performing concern, maybe.
Maybe, because when you put that next to the son saying they were having problems.
Right. The son's candid comment versus Mindy's worried wife report, it just doesn't quite line up. Especially now knowing Henry was already dead when she reported him missing.
Huge red flags. Missing person report turns into a murder scene, hint of marital problems. It forces investigators to look much, much closer at the Dodd family itself.
So with Henry dead, the police really had to dig into this family's past. And they started with Mindy. Mindy Sue Drury, born 1967, Hendersonville, Tennessee.
Another suburb near Nashville. Similar kind of place.
Yeah. And initially her childhood sounds pretty normal. Described as a happy, carefree child, always playing outside, dad was a mechanic, mom stayed home. Seems idyllic almost.
It's that contrast again, isn't it? That image of simple happiness before everything changed.
Because it did change pretty early on. Her parents divorced soon after she started school.
And that forced her mom, Betty, into a tough spot. From stay-at-home mom to struggling single parent.
Right. Betty had to get a job, ended up waitressing late nights at the Pancake House in Nashville. A big shift for the family. Financial strain, instability.
A far cry from that carefree image. And that's where Henry Dodd enters the picture.
At the Pancake House. Betty meets him there in 1974. Mindy was only 6 years old at the time.
And Henry, by all accounts, was charming. Betty said he could talk and make you believe he was the president of the United States.
Well, that suggests some serious powers of persuasion. Or manipulation.
It does. He knew how to present himself. But the reality, his painting and wallpaper business wasn't always reliable. The income was inconsistent.
So Betty had to keep that waitressing job even after they got married in '74, just to make ends meet. Worked nights often, partly to save on childcare.
Yet Henry kept up this image of being a good man, someone known for helping people. And little Mindy, she saw him as a loving, devoted stepfather.
That gap between the public image and the private reality. It's a recurring theme here.
Absolutely.
So this goes on for years. Mindy grows up, becomes a teenager, described as bubbly, outgoing. But then, late 1985, another shock. Mindy's pregnant. She's 18.
James, the father isn't around anymore.
Right. Her daughter, Angel, is born in July 1986. And credit to Mindy, she finishes high school, keeps living with Betty and Henry, gets a job at Kroger's bakery decorating cakes, trying to make it work.
But the family's under strain. Mindy's contributing, but Henry, he's still struggling.
Yeah.
Complaining about jobs, quitting, staying home, drinking not all the time, but enough to cause problems.
Yeah, Betty said by '92 the arguments were constant. He'd keep her up all night just arguing. The stress must have been immense.
The cracks were definitely showing, but what came next just blew everything apart.
During one of those arguments, apparently fueled by alcohol, Henry let something slip. A secret.
A devastating one.
He confessed that Mindy's daughter, Angel, was actually his daughter.
Oh my God, to Betty, his wife, telling her he fathered a child with her daughter.
Betty was, as you'd expect, shocked, beyond hurt. The betrayal is just unimaginable. Your husband, your daughter, your grandchild.
It's sickening, and it didn't even stop there, did it?
No. In the same argument, Henry tells Betty he's in love with Mindy, who's now 25.
So it wasn't just a past act, it was ongoing, an incestuous relationship presented as love to his wife.
Betty was just numb. How could you even process that? Didn't just damage the family, it completely warped it, twisted it into something monstrous.
Unrecognizable.
So 1993, Betty and Henry divorce, finally. But then the living situation becomes even stranger.
If that's even possible.
Betty stays living upstairs in their apartment building. Mindy and Henry move downstairs together.
In the same building.
Yes. And then Mindy, 25, marries Henry, 40. Her stepfather, the father of her child, despite the age gap, despite the fundamental wrongness of it all.
The family dynamic is just beyond odd. His stepdaughter becomes his wife. How does the mother cope living right above them? How does Mindy rationalize this?
It's hard to fathom. Mindy then has another child, a son, with Henry.
Adding another layer to this incredibly complicated family structure.
And still, stability was elusive. They were forever moving because he would get behind in the rent. Constantly bouncing around.
And Mindy kept working, right? Trying to hold things together.
Yeah, McDonald's swing manager, then Walmart customer service. She seemed to be the consistent provider while Henry remained unreliable.
Until they moved to Smyrna in the late 90s.
Right. That's when things seemed to finally look up, at least financially. Henry's painting business started doing well, maybe because of all the new construction,
He was getting contracts, making decent money for perhaps the first time.
which allowed them to rent a proper house, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath place in a quiet, really nice, quiet neighborhood.
So for about 6 years, they project this image of normalcy again. Just another family in conservative Smyrna.
But underneath all those secrets, that history, it was all still there, festering, ready to explode, which it did on New Year's Eve, 1999. Okay, so back to the crime scene. Henry Dodd shot dead in his truck, parking lot.
And the scene itself felt staged. That's what the officers thought, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like somebody had actually drove him there and planted that scene, not where the actual shooting happened.
Which suggests planning,
Yeah.
premeditation, someone trying to cover their tracks.
It immediately makes you think this wasn't random. So the big question is, who would want to kill Henry and why?
The why becomes crucial. You have to look into his life, his relationships.
And just as they're starting to process all this, another person shows up at the scene, James Smallwood.
Henry's nephew,
Yeah.
the one Henry was supposedly going to pick up from Hardee's.
Right. He's 23. Described as down on his luck. Henry's son said James had been living with them off and on for about 3 months. Basically used my father for a place to live.
So he's dependent on Henry living there. And Henry expected him to work, helping with the painting. James also had that part-time job at Hardee's.
And now he just appears at the crime scene. Hours after Henry went missing and was found dead? That's immediately suspicious.
How did he explain being there?
He claimed a friend, called him, saw the truck, saw the police cars, gave him a heads up. Plausible, maybe.
Okay.
But then, according to the investigators, he makes this most bizarre request. After they confirm Henry is dead, James says he wanted to make sure he was the one that we would notify Mindy Dodd of the death.
Wow. That is bizarre. Why would he insist on being the one to deliver that news? It's not his place, really. It feels controlling, almost.
Or like he already knew something, or wanted to manage how Mindy found out. The police thought it was a huge red flag.
I bet. So they decided they needed to talk to him properly.
Yeah, they bring him down to the station for a formal statement. They need to figure out what's going on with him.
And Mindy arrives at the station, too, eventually?
Yes. And when investigators are about to take her into an interview room, she asks if James can come with her.
She wants him in the interview room with her after he insisted on telling her about the death.
Exactly. Wants him there, together.
That's highly unusual. And then the police noticed something else, right? About their demeanors.
Yes, a stark contrast. The officers noted Mr. Smallwood was very emotional. Miss Dodd was not emotional at all.
James is crying, visibly upset. Mindy is calm, composed.
Yeah, almost detached. She did not appear to be for emotional support. Her composure in that situation was deeply unsettling to the police.
It suggests something isn't right. Grief looks different for everyone, but that level of calm, coupled with wanting James there.
It screams potential collusion, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Or at least that they share a secret.
Definitely. So the police make the smart call.
They separate them. Put Mindy and James in different interrogation rooms. Time to get their stories straight, individually. Okay, so interrogations begin. They start with James Smallwood.
And initially he praises Henry.
Yeah, says stuff like, he's done more for me than anybody, man. Trying to sound grateful, loyal.
Sticks to the story about Henry not showing up at Hardee's.
Right. Says he called Mindy at Walmart, begged her for a ride home. It's consistent, but maybe too neat.
But the detectives are digging deeper now. They know about the family history, about Mindy being his stepdaughter originally.
Exactly. They confirm that detail. Yeah, but Mindy was his daughter.
Yep.
Okay, used to be. You can almost hear the investigator trying to wrap his head around it.
It cements the idea that this family is very intertwined with very, very unusual relationships. They're not dealing with a straightforward case.
And then James starts talking about the sexual dynamic.
The sexual triangle.
Yeah. He says, Henry persuaded me to really into having a threesome with him. Uses the word persuaded, which hints at coercion, not enthusiasm.
Describes the acts.
Just oral sex, and he liked to watch me do her, meaning Mindy. He even admitted Henry touched him too, but sort of brushed it off, saying it really didn't fade me. Denial, maybe?
Or just trying to cope with something deeply disturbing. The investigator summary was pretty blunt, wasn't it?
Yeah, that all three individuals would participate, whether it was James and Henry or James and Mindy. It wasn't isolated. It was part of their lives. abusive.
And the investigators start to see a possible motive forming out of this horror, right?
They theorized that James maybe start enjoying the threesome with Mindy, and crucially, that Mindy felt the same way about him.
So a connection forms between James and Mindy, separate from Henry.
Right. The investigator thought James believed he may be taking the place of her husband after he was gone. It's this twisted mix of abuse, maybe some genuine feeling, and desperation. A dangerous combination.
But then James throws in another complication.
Another man. He reveals Mindy was apparently involved with a coworker from Walmart named Robert.
And Robert wanted to marry her.
Yeah, James claimed Robert had expressed a desire to marry her if she would leave her husband, which suggests Mindy was exploring escape routes on multiple fronts.
Making James potentially a pawn, or just one option she was considering.
James said he didn't know if Robert was involved in the murder, but it adds another layer of complexity and possible motive for Mindy.
Okay, so the investigators have all this. They sense James knows more, that he's holding back the final piece.
So they use a tactic, a psychological play.
They tell him Mindy's in the next room, blaming him.
Exactly. Lead him to believe she's pointing the finger right at him. Fingers being pointed at, okay, right now, get pointed, really, really start me. That pressure, that feeling of betrayal.
It breaks him.
Completely. He starts crying, sobbing, and then he confesses. Stated that he had killed Mr. Dodd.
And implicates Mindy directly.
Yes. Says flat out, Mindy Dodd asked him to do it. He recounts her saying something like, if you're tired of it, you can't deal with it anymore. A suggestion. An opening.
And James said yes.
Yes. And then, according to James, Mindy gave him the gun, Henry's own gun, kept in the closet. She allegedly provided the weapon.
That's huge. Direct involvement, supplying the means.
So, James describes the night of December 30th. He calls Henry to pick him up from Hardee's, like planned. Henry arrives. They drive home.
Just a normal routine until it wasn't.
Right. James says once they pulled into the driveway, he just pulled the gun out and then shot Mr. Dodd. Brutal. I shot him in the head, and then I shot him in the can.
Cold. Calculated.
But it gets worse. James starts driving around trying to figure out what to do with the body, and then he realizes
Henry isn't dead yet.
He hears him gurgling. The sound is horrifying. And James says, I took the gun, I just pop, 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 shoots him a couple more times in the back, just to make sure.
Unbelievably brutal, almost panicked violence on top of the initial act.
After that, he drives to the shopping center, parks the truck, tosses the keys and the gun into a dumpster nearby.
And then he calls Mindy.
Yes. And her response, according to James, is utterly chilling. Her first words,
Is it done?
Is it done? And when James says, yes, Mindy replies,
Finally.
Finally. That one word suggests relief, expectation, complicity. It's damning.
It really seals it, from James's perspective. Confirms her involvement, her desire for this outcome. For the police, this ties it all together.
Absolutely. By midnight that night, New Year's Eve turning into New Year's Day, both James Smallwood and Mindy Dodd are arrested. First-degree murder charges.
But Mindy had her own interrogation before the arrest, didn't she? How did that go?
Very differently. Investigators talked to her initially just trying to get her timeline, keeping it routine.
And her demeanor was off.
Strikingly so. She was very talkative, but about everything except Henry's death. Almost chatting, but avoiding the core issue. Showed not very much emotion about her husband of 6 years being murdered.
That composure is suspicious in itself. What was her story about the night Henry disappeared?
Consistent with her 911 call. James called her around 12:30 a.m. needing a ride because Henry didn't show up at Hardee's. No answer at the house.
Okay. And when they asked about the sex life, the threesomes.
Surprisingly nonchalant, just matter of fact. Admitted Henry had a problem of getting it and got turned on the thought of me being another man.
How did she explain her participation?
Said she wanted to make my husband happy. Did things she wasn't comfortable with, like there's another guy, implying it was for Henry's sake. Presenting herself as accommodating.
But then she brings up Henry's jealousy.
Yeah. Claims that even though he initiated it, he got jealous. Recalled a big argument where he accused her of planning to find somebody that I love and probably screw the hell out of him all the time if Henry wasn't around.
And threats.
She claimed Henry threatened to kill me if he found out she was with someone else. Insisted she took the threats seriously. Wanted to go to the police. Was afraid of it. Paging herself as a scared victim.
Trying to build that narrative. Did she say she told James about these threats?
Yes. Said she told James, and his reaction was protective. He got upset. He said, nobody. He said, I watch you. framing James as wanting to defend her.
Which could be seen as subtly encouraging him, couldn't it, depending on how you read it?
Exactly. And then she admits making that call to James on the day of the murder, the teasing call.
Asking him, "Are you still very good to me?" Referring to his supposed threat against Henry.
Yeah. But she immediately downplays it. Claims she didn't think he was serious, said he was just bluffing, blowing up at the mouth like he always does, that sometimes people joke around about stuff they're not supposed to joke around with.
Trying to dismiss it as just talk. What about the gun?
She acknowledged the gun was kept in the closet, but added, everybody in the family knew where that gun was, trying to diffuse the idea that she specifically gave it to him.
Okay, so how did she explain James calling her after the murder?
Claims she was surprised. I said, oh my God, you didn't. And when James supposedly said, I thought you wanted me to, she insists, she replied, I just didn't think you would do it because I seriously didn't think you, her reason. I didn't think you was serious.
So sticking to it was just talk, I don't think he'd actually do it defense. Did she deny having any part in it?
Directly. When asked, do you think that you had a part? She said, honestly, I really had no consistent denial of intent.
But she did admit filing the missing person report knowing he was dead.
Yes. Her explanation for that. Fear of James. I was afraid if he did do that, I was afraid he was going to do the same thing to me.
Did the investigators buy that? Her demeanor didn't suggest fear, did it?
Not according to them. They noted, I don't remember Miss Dodd ever expressing remorse. No tears, no visible grief for Henry.
And she admitted feeling relieved.
Relieved, yes, in a way. That admission, combined with her lack of emotion, her contradictory statements, the joking call, it all undermined her claims of innocence and fear.
Especially when compared to James's detailed emotional confession, which seemed to confirm her role. Her story just didn't hold up.
No. The police from James's account was basically confirmed by Mindy's own words and actions, even if she denied the ultimate intent. That was enough. Both were arrested. So fast forward almost 2 years, September 25th, 2001. Mindy Dodd, now 34, is on trial in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Rutherford County Courthouse,
facing charges for murder and conspiracy in Henry's death.
And this wasn't just any murder trial. The details that were about to come out, the inappropriate sexual conduct, the threesomes, the incestuous history. It was explosive stuff.
Especially for Smyrna, a very conservative Bible Belt community. This kind of story, these extremely odd facts, it must have been deeply shocking for people there.
Absolutely. The prosecution's strategy was straightforward. Prove there was a murder conspiracy going on between Mindy and James.
And their key piece of evidence was James Smallwood himself.
His videotaped confession, played for the jury, detailed, graphic, and directly implicating Mindy.
Plus the physical evidence he led them to, the gun, the ammunition.
Right. That provided more physical evidence to tie James Smallwood to what he had done, and crucially, more circumstantial evidence as far as the Mindy Dodd side of it. The prosecution felt confident. They thought they had an overwhelming great case.
And James had taken a plea deal, hadn't he?
Yes. Pled to conspiracy to commit murder, got a sentence of life with parole in exchange for testifying against Mindy. His testimony was absolutely central to their case.
But Mindy refused any deal.
Adamantly. Her family said she rejected it because it wasn't true. And she wasn't going to say she'd done something that she didn't do. She was going to fight it in court.
Which meant all the dirty laundry was going to be aired publicly.
And it was. When James took the stand, he repeated his confession. Insisted Mindy was behind this whole thing. Stressed that they talked about the murder before it happened, that she supplied the firearm.
And that conversation afterwards, is it done? Yes, finally, exchange.
He emphasized how important that was. Proof of her foreknowledge and relief. His testimony was powerful, emotional, came across as remorseful.
So how did the defense respond to that?
They hit back hard, arguing James acted alone, that Mindy never intended for Henry to be killed. They tried to paint James as a blowhard, someone who talked big but wasn't necessarily serious.
But their main strategy was to focus on Henry, wasn't it?
Yes. They dove deep into a history of alleged lots of sexual abuse and perversion within the family, all stemming from Henry.
Starting with Mindy herself.
Claiming Henry started abusing her sexually soon after marrying her mother, Betty, when Mindy was just 6.
And that this abuse continued for years.
Yes, allegedly, until he finally impregnated her at 18, resulting in Angel's birth. The defense argued Mindy's later compliance, her participation in the threesomes, Wasn't consent, it was a survival tactic.
Learned helplessness, essentially.
In order for her to survive, it's just very adaptive for her to give in to what he tells her to do because it's going to be much safer for her.
Right.
That was their psychological argument. She wasn't a conspirator. She was a long-term victim.
And they extended that victim narrative to James Smallwood, too.
Claimed Henry had molested James from a very young age, making James also deeply vulnerable, easily manipulated, and perhaps desperate to please or escape.
So the love triangle wasn't a romance, but another form of abuse.
That was the argument. It wasn't consensual. It was actually forced by Mr. Dodd, all part of his control.
And then Mindy's mother, Betty, testified.
Yes, and her testimony was horrifying. Claimed Henry abused her too, even after their divorce when he was married to Mindy.
Forcing her into sex when she visited the grandkids.
Exactly. And the most shocking claim, that Henry forced Mindy and Betty, daughter and mother, to perform sexual acts with each other. The ultimate taboo.
Betty called it disgusting, sick, just unimaginable coercion.
Betty testified they had no choice but to comply. Said Henry physically threatened us. Described his size, his anger, punching holes in walls. Said he knew how to manipulate people and he knew how to control them.
Painting a picture of absolute terror and domination.
The defense's core argument became Henry had created a situation by which all these people were just trying to find a way out. A horrible, horrible situation, driving them to desperate measures.
But they didn't explicitly say Mindy wanted him dead, did they?
No, they stopped short of that. Argued that despite the abuse, she also, in some essence, loved him. So murder didn't make sense. Betty also said she couldn't see her daughter doing that. It was a fine line they were walking.
And Mindy herself never testified.
No. Her lawyers felt it was too risky. All the information was already out there. Testifying could only hurt her case, potentially unraveling the victim narrative they'd built.
So the jury was left with this incredibly complex picture. James' confession and seeming remorse on one side.
And this horrific, detailed account of decades of alleged abuse and control on the other. The physical, mental, sexual, all manner of horrors.
Their decision really came down to whether they believed James's account of Mindy's active participation, or if they believed the abuse was so profound it drove events in a way that lessened her culpability. A truly difficult judgment call.
So September 27th, 2001, the jury comes back. Just 2 days of deliberation, really.
And the core question they had to answer was pretty stark, wasn't it?
Yeah, basically. Did Mindy know James Smallwood was going to kill Mr. Dodd? If yes, convict. If no, acquit. Legally, it boiled down to that knowledge and intent.
Despite all the complex history of abuse presented by the defense.
Right. And given James's testimony, the confession, the corroborating evidence, the prosecution felt it was almost inevitable.
And the verdict was?
Guilty. Guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and guilty of first-degree premeditated murder.
So the jury believes she did know that she was part of the plan. They bought the prosecution's narrative, reinforced by James's testimony.
It seems so.
Yeah.
The verdict indicated they saw her as an active participant, not just a passive or coerced victim in that final act.
And the sentence?
Life in prison, with the possibility of parole. But under Tennessee law at the time, that meant serving a minimum of 51 calendar years before even being eligible.
51 years. So realistically, she's spending the rest of her functional life behind bars.
Pretty much. Very long time.
How did the family react? Mindy's family?
Devastated.
Yeah.
Stunned, Mindy's mother said. I cried my eyes out. I believe that she is innocent. They maintained that James acted alone, that Mindy wasn't guilty of murder.
Still holding on to that belief.
Yeah, and Mindy's mother made that incredibly poignant, complex statement.
The one about being better off in prison.
Yes. I don't think my daughter should be in prison, but I think she's better off than she would have been staying with him.
Wow. That just speaks volumes about the level of fear and horror she believed Mindy was living under with Henry. That prison seemed like a preferable alternative.
It really does. It highlights the desperation, the perceived lack of options.
And it raises that difficult question, doesn't it? When someone endures that level of prolonged, severe abuse, how does the legal system account for the psychological impact, the trauma? Can a standard murder trial really capture that reality?
It's tough. The law needs clear lines, intent, premeditation. But life, especially life under that kind of duress, is often much messier.
And the impact continues, doesn't it? Mindy's daughter, Angel.
Her words were heartbreaking. It made me grow up really fast. I never really got to have that childhood. She talked about being without her mother for so long, I don't even know how to cry about it anymore.
That's the ripple effect, the generational trauma left behind. It doesn't end with the verdict.
No, it certainly doesn't. This whole deep dive really shows the layers, doesn't it? Deception, control, abuse, all simmering beneath that quiet suburban surface in Smyrna. We've traced the timeline, the backgrounds, the evidence, how it all culminated in such a tragic, twisted way.
And while the facts of the murder itself seem clear, who pulled the trigger, who was involved to the file, the why remains deeply unsettling. It wasn't simple. It was tangled up in years, decades even, of alleged abuse and manipulation.
It forces you to think about the power dynamics in families, the long-term effects of abuse, how trapped someone can feel.
Absolutely. And it leaves us with a really difficult question to ponder. When people are caught in such horrifying cycles of abuse and control, where does responsibility truly lie? How far might someone go to escape what feels like an inescapable nightmare?
And can our legal system, focused on specific acts and intent, ever fully grasp the crushing weight of that kind of history, the desperation that might lead someone to such a dark place? It's something that stays with you long after you hear the details of a case like the Dodds.